two, one. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another excerpt of the Scouser on the Scot Show.
Tonight we have got someone special who I've seen play live. I've actually been lucky enough to actually share a stage on the same bill as him. Matt Long, how the hell are you doing, mate? Are you keeping well?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, all things considered. About as good as you can be right now. Yeah, and I'm doing okay. At home like everyone else, kind of twiddling their thumbs quite a lot, but even so, it's as good as we can be. How about you guys?
Yeah, we're doing very well, mate. We're busy writing new material and obviously doing a lot more of the Scouser and the Scot. So it's all good,
Yeah,
mate.
it's good.
All
I'm liking
good.
this, man. Yeah, it's a good like layout of this thing. It's great.
And
I
then,
love it, mate.
and then where I'm concerned, I'm just trying to fucking plot. I'm trying to plot fog. So
Yeah.
I'm basically trying to keep all the bands in the forefront of their own minds, never mind anybody else's.
Yeah.
I think if there's anything, and we'll probably discuss this a bit more, but I think the one thing that this has done is made us all reevaluate how we do things and how we need to go on. So hopefully that'll be part of our discussions, Mark.
Yeah, I think so. I reckon that's
So let's get down to it. 'Cause we've got 10 questions for you tonight, Matt, if that's cool with you. So let's get into the nitty gritty about Matt Long, find out a little bit more about him and find out what actually, where it all began. So your first question, Matt, is can you give us a bit of background information about yourself? What piqued your interest in music? Is there any bands in particular?
Well, I would say there's a bit of music, like in every kind of genre, there's always a bit of music that you're going to like, I've always said. So no matter what you listen to, there's always going to be something that you enjoy. And I've always just found it really interesting just to go through everything and just try and find that thing that I like. So, there's been so many musicians that I've looked up to and kind of inspired me in some way, shape, or form. I guess the ones who kind of started me out, like when I first started playing, would be people like B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Gary Moore. And then later on that evolved into people like Joe Bonamassa, Alter Bridge, and loads of other guys. It's just kind of expanded into so many different genres, like stemming from blues into rock, into metal, and then into basically everything and anything, really. But yeah, I would say people like Bonamassa have been a huge influence on me, and B.B. King, Stevie Ray, a lot of blues guys, a lot of the kind of typical blues guys. And then, later on, getting into more modern side of things has been really interesting because I think there's a lot of great music out there nowadays, and we're lucky to live in the age that we are, really.
Definitely
I'm
agree
glad
with
you.
you.
I'm glad you said that, Matt, because it's something I'm banging on a lot about just now. Because I keep seeing people, boring bastards, basically giving it rock is dead and metal's dead. I'm saying, listen, I'll be 60 in a month's time. I've lived through the whole of the rock. Yeah, really. And I'm telling you now, there's more and better bands out there than there's ever been. The problem is that they don't have the same marketplace and the same interest.
Yeah, it's radically changed since the olden days, as everyone says it. Like it's a lot more of a different, like, beast to kind of tackle in a way. Yeah, and every time someone says, "Oh, there's no good music out there nowadays," or rock music or anything like that, I always just say, "Well, you're obviously not looking hard enough because there's so much great stuff out there. There really is."
They're the sort of people who've never bought a record, never been to a live show, never
Yeah,
gone to see an
that kind of thing.
unsigned act, stuff like that. And that's what we've got to try and change. We've got to
Yeah,
try and encourage people to go to these shows and
absolutely. Yeah.
see what new stuff's out there instead of paying. I think it's something ridiculous like 140 quid for an Aerosmith ticket, even though I love Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Go and
Like,
see, go and see, go and
yeah.
see some unsigned bands instead. Because I'll tell you what, you'll be surprised. There's a lot of good bands
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
absolutely. Some of the best gigs I've been to have been small, intimate gigs, and going to see new bands and things like that. I've been really good to be surprised by these kind of bands, and just yeah, I think it's just a case of opening your mind, and just because it's not in a big arena doesn't mean it's not going to be good. In
Exactly.
fact, actually, sometimes I find big arena shows can be quite, you know, you know, cavernous and empty in a way. Sometimes that there are
That's
some
so
bands that can
that's
really,
soulless. Yeah, a
yeah.
bit soulless, aren't they?
Well, it's not even that. I think some bands are suited towards that kind of area really well, and then other bands are like they're big and famous now, so they have to play these venues because that's how many people they can get in to sell tickets and stuff. So I think it changes on which band it is, but yeah, I think it's yeah, in a way, it's kind of neglected the underground scene a bit more because everyone's like, oh well, you know, the ticket price is only £5, so that means it's not going to be that good, is it? So it's
Yeah.
things like, oh, it's free entry, and it's like, yeah, doesn't mean any. It's not any indication of what the music's going to be like. I have to say, it really isn't.
So, I mean, you talked there about some of the bands that first got you, you know, some of your first sort of forays into music and listening to music. So, if I was saying to you, which guitarists in particular
Yeah.
have you listened to initially or since actually that you've went, that's amazing. That's made me want to pick up a guitar, get on a stage and perform. Who would they be, Matt?
I would have to give big like appreciation to Joe Bonamassa. I think he's one of the main guys for me. He really is. I remember seeing him when I was for the first time when I was about 12, maybe 13, and just instantly being hooked on it and like, oh, that's really cool. Like his playing was just what I liked. It just ticked all the boxes for me. And then when I saw him later on in the Royal Albert Hall for the first time, back in 2009, that was the gig. That was like the lightning bolt moment for me to be like, I don't want quote unquote a real job. I want to be a musician. I want to do this for a career, and I want to play places like this eventually, or just you know, this is what I want to do with my life. I don't want to carry on, you know, for normal education in a way. I want to go to music college. I want to get better at this. This is my thing. You know, I remember standing up at the end of that gig, turning to my parents and being like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. And they were like, okay.
So it was an easy, because your dad's a musician, isn't he?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So you have to excuse me. My knowledge of blues isn't great, mate.
That's all right. No worries.
But I met Paul obviously when you came and played for us in Manchester, and so I'm guessing that it was an easier sell with him than it would be for somebody that's maybe watching this. Its parents have like never played an instrument, never thought about it, and don't look at it as a job as such.
Yeah. There certainly was a similarity between me and him because he did the exact same thing when he was my age. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna go to music college, and you got a degree in music, that kind of thing. And yeah, we pretty much went through the exact same situation. And I think his parents were the same. They were. I think at least his dad is a musician. Yeah, my grandmother isn't a musician, but she's a very supportive woman, so she would have said yes. And yeah, it's definitely a mutual understanding because we were both musicians. But I will say they never pushed me in any way to do anything like you know certainly not in the beginning, just to be like, yeah, find what you want to do and do it. Because I actually started out playing piano, and I wasn't enjoying it. I just couldn't play it very well. I love the instrument, but it just wasn't fitting with me. So we had the guitar lying around the house, and I always used to just strum away on that, making horrible noises. And yeah, when I said to them I want to play guitar, just switch over to guitar because I was enjoying that way more, even without lessons. They said absolutely. So yeah, even then it was like they're not forcing me to play piano as well. They were like, find what you want to find and do it. So I understand it. You know, I've had very very, my parents are amazing. They, like I say, they never pushed me to do anything I didn't want to do. So I understand it's a bit trickier for someone who is a musician and wants to be a musician, but their parents don't quite see it the same way because I'll be honest with you, it's not the most lucrative job in the world. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, Ian. So, yeah, it's not exactly something you don't go into it for the money, though. That's the thing. You do it because you want to do it. Which I think is really cool.
I think you've nailed it there, Matt. To be perfectly honest, my little niece is 16. She's just started playing guitar,
Right.
and I've just said to her, do what you want to enjoy, play what you want to enjoy, pick your guitar up, learn what you want to do because you'll do more by doing that than forcing yourself, and you'll find your own style as well. And
yeah, absolutely,
parents, don't force them; just let them evolve and push them in the right direction in a nice way and make it more fun. I think it was I was watching this thing where Zach Wild, one of my idols, you know what I mean. He was talking about his music class, and he was saying, I don't want to play Bar Bar Black Sheep on a piano. I want to play Elton John. I
Yeah.
want to do this one. And you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
It's like, that no one wants to learn Bar Bar Black Sheep. It's like,
No,
from
exactly.
you're in secondary school and you're learning Bar Bar Black Sheep. No, put something cool on, like, learn the likes of, like, Crocodile Rock or something like that, where you're actually getting into it and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, you know what, that makes perfect sense.
It
Where
really does.
you,
It just helps keep you interested in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, if you can sing along to it,
Yeah.
even though everyone knows Bar Bar Black Sheep, um, even though if you can sing along to it, and it's that breakthrough moment. It's like, when you started learning some Bonamassa. I can guarantee the first time you learned it, like, you picked it up and you was like, Christ, that's not unlike it. But then you hit one bar where you actually nailed it, and you went, oh my god, a breakthrough moment. I've just started playing bits like him. I'm picking things up off him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where you get that break. Like you say, it is a breakthrough moment where you get excited from it. So,
Yeah.
like I say, keep
Absolutely.
it real, keep it excitable, keep it fresh. Like,
Yeah,
learn things that
exactly.
you want to learn.
100%. It's just so liberating to just play what you want to play rather than like I went through the same thing. Like I said, when I was playing piano, I was playing like, chopsticks and, heart and soul and things like that, the typical kind of piano things. And that's all well and good because it helps you get technique down at least. But you can do that. You can get technique and learn a song you want to learn as well. Like, but I also think sometimes um, I've noticed parents, you see like kids on YouTube who are speed demons and they can play, you know, Pachelbel Cannon and all those kind of things like ridiculously well, or shred, speed demons, things like that. And you can always tell when one of those kids doesn't really want to do it, but their parents is like, you have to do this, and
Yeah,
trying to like be very strict about it, because they're very kind of like stiff and reserved, and like it's all very robotic in a way. Nothing
mechanical.
wrong with it
Yeah.
necessarily, but I always think it should become more natural to them because the minute that kid plays anything that they want to play, I can guarantee you anything that will loosen them up and just they'll just emit so much more vibe for doing it. So I think it is definitely a case of if you're gonna let them find their way, let them find their way. If you know what I mean, they will find
Yeah.
a way.
I mean, I used to see it in sport because I used to be involved in sport
Mm.
and coaching, and I was a rugby league referee and played rugby league and everything. And I used to see it where there was parents that were trying to live their life through their kid, and
Yeah,
maybe they'd never played rugby themselves but wished they had. So they live, and he could. And I used to say, well, why didn't you play my son?
mm.
He was a substitute. Why didn't you put him on? I couldn't find him. He was away playing in the trees because he'd rather play in the trees than play rugby, mate.
Yeah,
But they pushed it. And I suppose it's like everything else. If you've got if there's a fire burning inside you,
mm.
you know, let it burn. Let it burn, and nothing will quench that. And if somebody tries to guide that fire in a different direction, it won't work. You'll either put the fire out altogether, which is the worst thing,
Yeah,
or you waste your own time. I think it's one of these things. I mean, when you stand there and you watch Joe Bonamassa and you go, that's shaped my life. I think a moment like that, and I'd like to think anybody who watches this, if it's parents or anything like that, will remember that comment. And you're not the first to say it.
no,
I mean, I remember when we interviewed Ricky Warwick, and Ricky was like, he listened to his dad was a farmer that was
mm.
working like 18 hours, 20 hours a day sometimes. And his love of music came from hearing his dad playing just records or whatever, Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, etc. But
Yeah,
it was only when he saw Stiff Little Fingers live that he went, that's what I want to do.
hmm,
But he still maintains his love of country music,
yeah,
but he didn't go down that route. Well, latterly he's gone down acoustic route as well, so he's come back to it. But his parents didn't go, no, come on, it needs to be country because that's what we like, did they?
well,
You
yeah,
know?
exactly. Like, yeah, my parents never really listened to much metal music or rock music. Like, I mean, my dad likes kind of prog music, so it gets a bit rocky, but not like to the extent of the stuff that I listen to. But they've always like I even showed my mum some of the stuff that I listened to, and she suddenly started to really enjoy it. Um, and but that wouldn't necessarily be the stuff that she would go and listen to, like off the fly. So if anything, I've kind of introduced them into more areas of music, I guess. I mean, they probably would have found it anyway, but like, it's yeah, they never kind of said they were never said to me, you have to do this kind of music just because my dad played that kind of music, for instance. So I think that is a very important thing. And like you say, find your own way, find your right thing, and then just go for it. And really, that is essentially the main thing. Just do something you enjoy.
So obviously, I'm a bit of a gearhead. I enjoy collecting guitars as yourself. Can you talk us through your guitars and you set up what's you set up on stage, and if it differs from when you record them?
Well, one of the key things I say is I don't consider myself a guitar collector. I consider myself a guitar hoarder, which is a completely
Um,
different thing. There's no
yeah,
pride behind it.
I can't say that. Unfortunately, the wife's in the room next to us.
Yeah, the shout from behind you going liar would be good.
Yeah. I mean, like some of these, some of my most prized possessions, and then other ones, I bought off eBay for 30 quid for a bit of fun, and I've never touched them since. So it's things like that. But yeah, on stage, I'll typically use. I'll even get it out for you right now. This bad boy right here, PRS SC 245. It's very nice. It's very pretty, and typically see me playing a Les Paul style guitar, and I got a Les Paul back there as well, or this one. I like humbuckers, but I also like Strat stuff every now and again. I've got a couple of Strats as well. But for 9 times out of 10, when you see me, I'll be playing a Les Paul with humbuckers or a Les Paul style guitar.
Have you
Amp
changed the
wise,
pickups in them at all?
I actually
To
have
get
no idea because this is a second-hand guitar.
right.
I bought it off my friend a few years ago now, about 3 years ago, and he had it since it was made, which was 2007. Um, and as far as I know, I don't think he changed anything in them. So it could be like the PRS stock pickups that they had at the time because they keep changing
Yeah,
the
the
pickups.
one
So these won't exist anymore, which is really annoying. So whenever these like break, I'll have to find something else. Um, but yeah, no, it's yeah. I would call this one my number one, and then that Les Paul behind me probably my joint number one. Um, so that kind
is
of
there
order.
much difference in the tones? And
I
this is
think
a
so.
question for obviously people who are unaware of the differences. Now,
Well,
I'm fully aware of some of them, but
yeah,
it's one of
exactly.
those. It's one of those. What are the differences between the Les Paul and the PRS in your eyes?
Well, this PRS is modeled off an old. Essentially, it's modeled off an old Les Paul. Like it's aesthetically, it's basically like a '59
Mm.
Les Paul in a way. So it's got a big thick neck and kind of vintage sounding pickups. But it's a modern feeling guitar and things like that. That Les Paul over there is a lot brighter and it's got a lot more uh, higher output pickups in them. So I would typically use that for more rock stuff, and then this for more bluesy stuff. But this can wail at the same time. But yeah, I would say that one's more bare bones, and yeah, that one has a certain characteristic about it that this one doesn't. But then this one has certain characteristics that one doesn't. So it's like that one's brighter and louder and more aggressive sounding, but then this one can clean up really nicely, and it's a different animal for different things, but they can meet in the middle a lot of the time, which is nice.
What
Uh,
pedals and amps are you using? And
Plenty of pedals, too many pedals. All the gear aficionados out there would be like, "Oh, you don't need that many pedals." It's like, I know I don't, but they're fun, and I enjoy them.
are you a stage tap dancer?
I am. I definitely am, and I'm not ashamed of it. I enjoy it, and I'll stick by it as long as I live.
I want this as an honesty box moment, Matt. Is
Mhm.
there any pedals that go on stage with you that are just there for show and you don't actually touch them during the gig?
I will say I actually use them all at least once per gig. I would say that actually.
All right, that's good then.
Yeah. No, I would say all of them.
Had to check there,
I
look.
like that. I like
It's right down
that.
here. It's like, there is a new pedal that I got that I'm experimenting with, so it's not in the set yet necessarily. So that one might not get turned on, but I'm sure I'll find a place for it in future
That sounds
songs.
like a new song. I was just going to say a new song. That one,
Exactly.
yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
So obviously you've got a number of pedals. What amp are you actually using to get your tone?
I tend to use Mr. Boogie amps
Nice.
all the time recently. I have a Mark V, which for me that just does everything. And everything from super high gain like metal sounds to super nice clean sounds. So you can do any kind of gig on it. So typically you'll find me bringing that to a gig, no matter what gig it is. I also have here an Express 550 Plus, which is I got that on first because I couldn't afford a Mark V at the time, and it was like that was a good compromise for me. But I really enjoy this amp as well. I've been using it for all my streams and all the recording that I've been doing in my room, and it's also a good backup for the Mark V if that ever happens to break and I have to send it off to get fixed. Which so far, touch wood, it hasn't, so it's fair enough. But yeah, I'll use that for all my acoustic gigs as well. Actually, I turn the settings because I always prefer having an amp for acoustic stuff because it just sounds infinitely better than plugging into a desk, and it gives you more control over it. You can have more it gets you an effects loop and reverb, all that kind of thing, but etc. etc. And that handles it really well. You obviously have to tweak the settings a lot more, but yeah, it actually turns into a really nice kind of good sounding amp that, if you happen to be playing acoustic and then you have to switch over to electric, it's quite easy to do that because obviously it's an electric amp. But yeah, no, I always keep the same kind of theme no matter what I'm doing. So the pedal board can do pretty much anything. So even if I'm going away on tour and I can't bring my amps with me, I can plug into pretty much anything and get a similar tone to what I would have. No matter what I'm plugging into, I mean, within reason. But yeah, so I always like having as many options as I can when it comes to tone. So some would say I have an obsession with pedals, and I would agree with them. But for me,
who would these people be, Matt? These people that would say you have an obsession.
Other
the people
guitarists.
Know you most.
It's always other guitarists. No one else gives a damn. It's just other guitarists.
They're jealous, mate. They're just jealous.
It's not.
It's not. Do you know what?
It's like they can get a good tone just plugging straight into an amp, and that's fine. That's your thing. My thing is this. I enjoy it. I have a good time.
Do you know what? If you like me, Matt, it's one of those where I always like to help other bands when I'm doing the festivals and like playing them and stuff like that. Help them get on and off the stage, and it's just so I can see what sort of gear they use, because it's one of them where you can actually see what the setup is and stuff like that, and knowledge is power. And I hate to say it,
absolutely.
If you see someone with a new pedal, I can guarantee, and you go, he's got a great tone. You want to know what that pedal is. You want to know what he's using. And it's like, how many times you've been playing that guitar and you see fellas on the front row and they're looking over going, what's he got?
Oh, so many times. And honestly, whenever that happens, I get like a really warm, fuzzy feeling. I was like, yes, it means I've got good stuff.
Sad bastards.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, there have been a couple of times where I've like looked at people's rigs and I've been like, I could maybe incorporate that into my thing somewhere, and it's really interesting to find out. Recently, though, I have been, because I've got quite a few things that can cover pretty much all my bases for normal stuff. So I've been kind of moving on to like the weirder and less important things. Like over the last few days, I've just been telling myself, I don't need a whammy pedal. I don't need a whammy pedal. But I want a whammy pedal. I want to be Tom Morello and just make all those weird sounds and just, but yeah.
I've actually got a whammy pedal, but I don't use it now.
Yeah. I will never use it on stage. Well, at least I don't think I will. But I still want one. Or a talk box.
Do you know what? I'd love a talk box. It's something that I've always wanted.
It's like I would never use it, and it's such a faff to set up for gigs and things. I would never use it for a gig, but I still want one.
that was I'll tell you a funny one about that talk box you're talking about. There's a band contacted me from America a couple of weeks ago, and they were wanting to tour over here in 2022. So they were wanting to know if I was interested in working with them, promoting them and that. So I'm like, I don't know, never really heard of them. So they sent me these links, and the first thing was YouTube. And there's the guy with the talk box line. He's giving it loud, and I went, "Yeah, I'll work with you, mate. That's it." Peter Frampton, show me the way.
That's straight the benefit of the talk box. You'll get more work if you get a talk box.
I'll be honest. The only reason I want one is just so I can play the starter suite of motion in the house properly.
Yeah, Yeah, that's literally it. I want to play Man in a Box by Alice in Chains.
Exactly,
That's it.
Man in a Box, another one. Yeah, so there's two
Yeah.
songs I can use it on.
We-
So I
Exactly.
think
And that's all
we've
we
got a
need.
case. We've got a case now to get it. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's literally one of those things like you buy it just so you can play other people's songs. You're never going to write on that.
I'll tell you a story about that. I had a band in the late 70s, and one of the guys got one of them, basically because he wanted to do Show Me the Way.
Yeah.
So he gets it. The problem with him was, and we'd always noted, we used to call him Slap Gob, because his front of his clothes were always like wet because he was always like that. And he got it. And the first night he tried to use it, he slathered into it that much, he knackered it.
Oh no.
Oh,
I swear to God, it was funny. He took it back, and where he bought it from, he says, it's not working. He says, it's gone rusty.
I just imagine like the guy who returns it to just looking at it, just going like,
And I'll tell you what, every time I tell that story, I build it bigger and bigger. Right, Matt, you've talked already about some of the guitarists. Is there any guitarists that you kind of inspire you that we would be surprised at? Because I could name a lot of guitarists that you probably, the normal ones. Is there any that we would be surprised at?
I don't know about surprised, but I'm kind of a basic human being a lot of the time. I don't know. I remember when I was still in school, how when I first listened to Joe Satriani for the first time, how much he influenced me in that way. Just to be like, you can make weird, crazy sounds out of a guitar, and but it's still being musical and things like that. So he's a big one for me that I wasn't expecting to get into because I wasn't really into the whole before this. I wasn't really into the whole virtuoso thing. Just essentially everything is a long guitar solo, even though it's not. It is a song. And he showed me that. He was one of the guys that was like, you can actually do a virtuoso song, but it being a really well written song with a clear melody. You know what's the verse, you know what's the chorus, you know what's the solo, and then there is a structure to it. So he was a big influence on me for kind of opening the boundaries a lot more when it comes to writing. And it's not hugely surprising because he's a huge guitar player in the guitar player world. Because I like him, but I'm not a huge fan of other people who are in that world, like virtuoso things. Not that they're bad or anything. I enjoy their music, but it's never really been like the same as what he did. So yeah, I would say he's a big, different inspiration to me in that way. As far as other guitarists outside of my genre, like I said, I listen to a lot of different stuff. So I like people like Chris Stapleton. He's not he is a guitar player, but he's not like a guitarist. He's not like a shredding guy, but he's an excellent songwriter, like one of the best I've ever heard. So I've been hugely influenced by him recently, and like getting more into country music through him. And because that's a genre that gets too much stick nowadays. Is country, it's a beautiful thing. And
I tell you something, Matt. Ian and Ian will attest to this as well. The amount of musicians we've spoke to who are in rock or metal or whatever, but every one of them so far has said it started with country music and they still love it.
Yeah, some country guitar playing is some of the most technical stuff you'll ever hear, more so than jazz or metal, in my opinion. Like,
definitely, string skipping and finger picking is just
like
next
you
level,
listen
isn't
to
it?
people like Danny Gatton, and like it's just insane what he can do on his guitar, and it's like I could never do anything like that, no matter how hard I tried. Just like that's just him, and it's just it's just insane. Some of the country players you see just playing, just absolutely killing it, and it makes me want to kind of learn more of that kind of stuff in a way, because I think that's a huge. It's like a technique, like you said, with the string skipping and like the finger picking, chicken picking thing like that. That's a technique you can bring into any genre, and it will sound awesome.
That's what Zach Wilde did it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Zach Wilde came out of country rock, didn't he?
Well, exactly. Because he was southern rock kind of thing beforehand, and then expanded into metal areas and things like that. So yeah, absolutely, he'll have a whole bunch of country techniques in his thing.
A lot of his lead work, if you listen to it, like he does a lot of chicken picking.
Yeah.
Where he's using the pleck and his fingers at the same time to actually do the string skipping and stuff like that. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely one which I'd always advise people to check out. Different 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 areas.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit then, Matt. So obviously, if there was someone watching this who was going, I want to learn how to play guitar and I want to be a guitarist, what advice would you give them?
Essentially, just like if anyone's on the fence about it, like whether they should or whether they shouldn't, do it. There's no wrong answer. There's no bad thing about learning how to play guitar. And it's like some people are like, oh, I don't know, is it really for me, or is it my thing? And it's like you're not going to find out until you start playing it. And I can guarantee you, there's going to be something in it you're going to enjoy. It's going to be frustrating at first, so keep at it is the main thing. Like I started playing when I was 6 years old. I'm 26 now, and I've gotten to where I am in that amount of time purely by just doing it over and over again, like every day. And this is the thing: you never stop learning. And that's like everyone thinks there's like an end to learning how to play guitar. Even some of the greatest guitar players in the world, they still learn stuff every day. There's always a new thing to learn, and it's and the thing is not to treat it like a competition. Don't be hard on yourself because someone else is better than you, or don't put anyone down because they're less experienced than you. Always just try and better yourself every day with your playing. And it's yeah. One of the techniques I did was rather than trying to be better than so and so a guitarist who's really big and one of my influences, be like them. Just be better than yourself a week ago. Always try and learn a new thing if you can, and if you just find time for it, really, just find time to seek out new things. And like I said, just listen to music. Like just listen to all kinds of music, because then that will bleed into your own playing as much as you can. Really, like no matter what it is, just give it a go. It's not going to hurt you anyway. It's just going to expand your repertoire, and it's going to expand your horizons. And you might find some new things you enjoy. You might find some things you don't like, and then that's fine. You can, you know, work around it. And there's no real rules to it, really. There's no right way to learn. There's just doing it the way you want to do it.
I think that kind of key that, because one of the things like we was talking before, keep it enjoyable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that a lot of mistakes are made, and right, shoot me down if you want, Matt, by all means. But if you can't play it, play something that you can play and write that around it, because you are so much more relaxed upon stage
Mm.
playing something that you feel comfy
Absolutely.
playing,
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
trying to
100%
force
agree.
something that you're not 100% right with.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And like, I'll tell you, the worst gigs I've ever done were function gigs where I had to learn how to play a song in a specific way, because that's just not my area. I didn't enjoy it. And just like, I found it really hard because I was like, I had to play exactly like this. And I've not written anything of it, so I don't remember it as well. So I have to read it off the thing. So I was just very uncomfortable with that kind of thing. But then when I'm on stage doing my own thing, it's just completely natural to me now because I've been doing it for so long, and that's what I want to do. So it is definitely a case of, like you say, just doing what you enjoy. It really is. Like there's no other. Like that's the main thing. Just enjoy it.
Okay, well, as I've already said before, I am not I never have been somebody that was into the blues scene. So I'll be honest, I don't really understand it. But obviously, you are best known currently as the front man and front lead guitarist singer for Catfish.
Yes.
So can you talk us through this, the band, how that works, and the blues scene in general from your perspective? Give a bit of insight
Yeah.
into him.
Well, we started out like I was in a couple of bands beforehand, and I was in rock bands and another blues band. Um, and then all of a sudden, they all fell through at the same time, so I had no band. So I went to my dad and I asked him whether he would want to start just like a covers band and just playing some pubs, make some money, have a bit of fun. So we did. And when we started out, we literally were just doing covers and literally just doing that, earning a little bit of money every now and again. I was still in college at the time, so it wasn't like a job or anything for me at the time. So it was fine, just low key fun, really. And then all of a sudden, we gained more popularity as we got on. And all of a sudden, we recorded an album. Everyone really enjoyed it, It was all covers, and yeah, we decided at that point it was like we could actually do something with this. You know, we could actually be like a proper band, write some original stuff, and actually have a go at it. Really, we enjoyed it that much, so we might as well. So we wrote our first. Well, it wasn't our first album, like I said. There was a covers album before, but our first originals album. Um, Shortly afterwards, a couple of years, like maybe a year or so afterwards, and yeah, ever since then we've just been doing more and more of that, and we've gone from blues covers band playing in pubs to where we are now. And I never expected it, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's been the biggest band I've ever been in my life so far. And it's just been such a great experience. So it's every day there's something new about it, and it's just great fun. Um, and yeah, it's been interesting, like exploring the blues scene a lot more because I was doing a lot more rock stuff beforehand. So the blues scene wasn't quite the area I was. Well, I was always into blues, and I always wanted to be in a blues band, but it wasn't like in comparison to the rock bands I was in as busy at the time. I wasn't gigging as regularly with blues bands, which I always wanted to do more of. So the blues scene is interesting because
I always laugh when I hear somebody say interesting. That means there's
yeah,
some weirdos about.
well, yeah, yeah. It's interesting because it's not like it's a lot more expanded than I thought it was, especially in the UK. Because when you think of the UK, you don't typically think of blues. It's not like a one of the main things. You think of like Brit rock and all those kind of things. Um, so blues was never. I expected it to not be as huge a thing, but it is. It's more underground than a lot of other music genres. Um, but there's a lot of great stuff in it, and I find it interesting because people enjoy it in different ways. Some people like it super traditional, like, old school kind of blues, which is fantastic. If they can play it like that and do it convincingly, and that's what they want to do, it sounds amazing. It really does. And then there's more contemporary stuff, and, stuff that you wouldn't call straight up blues, but it would be blues rock. So there's a lot of like different sub areas where you can go in. There's like folk blues, jazzy blues, funky blues, just all kinds of things. It's like subcategories, like not as many as something like metal, but
God,
it's
don't go there, Pat.
yeah, there's like an infinite list of subcategories of metal. So yeah, it's probably not anything like that. But yeah, no, you got a lot of different things going on, but it's still in essence it's blues. And I always gravitated more towards the blues rock area of things because I was a rock guitarist as well as blues guitarist. So that kind of that fitted me down to the ground. Um, so it is interesting because you'll get some people who really enjoy it, like what you're doing, and then you'll get other people who are like, "That's not blues. How dare you call yourself blues?" And just they're very like elitist about it. Like it has to be a certain way, and you have to be a certain kind of person to play it. And I'm just like, that's really limiting to the music. And if that keeps happening, then it's not going to progress. And I would hate for that to happen because it's such a beautiful kind of music. Like, obviously, I love traditional blues as well. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. But I think, in a sense, it has to kind of progress into the modern age, just like every other genre has. It's evolved into the modern age. So it's interesting to see people's reactions to it because there are people like me who are like that and they accept, open to it and accept it. And then there are people who just, they don't want to leave that little box. They want to keep everything within the boundaries. And, I mean, each to their own. But I'm not saying you have to like a certain kind of music. I will never say that. But I think to put other people down for liking that kind of music is kind of detrimental to both that person and yourself in a way. So I think it's definitely like with all kinds of music, it's good to just be open with it and just if you don't like it, fair enough. You don't have to listen to it. Like that's the way it is. That's like something I don't quite understand about the internet age of like trolls and all those kind of people. Like I've had a few people kind of message like the catfish page and just being like sending really mean things about us and me specifically, which is fine. I don't care. It's it doesn't affect me in any way because that's just them. But I'm just like, there are so many more things that are justifiable to hate I'm not one of them, if I'm honest. Because
Yeah.
like I'm just a music. I'm a guy who plays guitar. I make music, and if you don't like music, you don't have to listen to it. So it's fine.
Funny, the funny thing is, Matt, I've just finished Keith Richards' autobiography,
Yeah.
and they were going through that in the early '60s with the blues scene,
Mm.
because you had Charlie Watts that was a traditional blues, and then they were into traditional blues, but they were also into skiffle, and
Yeah.
the scene was, they almost kicked them out. It was exactly the same, and that was in that was the late '50s, actually early '60s. So it's never really changed. But what you're talking, how you've just described the blues scene, is very similar to the country scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah. It's definitely like everyone has like their checklist of things that they want to tick off before they call it whatever genre it is. And if you don't fit in that, then they're not going to give you the time of day. And it's like I find that really, like I say, really detrimental to yourself and the music. So it's just expanding your horizons is always going to be a good thing. I don't think it's ever going to be a bad way of saying just enjoy music. Just there's not no wrong, again, there's no wrong way about it, but people have seemed to have found a wrong way, which is weird. And like I was mentioning like the trolls before, and like there was one guy who he said something absolutely hilarious. He said something like, "Oh, that Matt Long guy. No wonder the country is going to shit." What? Like what?
What have you done, Matt? Come on, what have you
I
done?
tell you what that
Oh,
was.
it's
That
me.
was
It's
when you were.
me the whole
That's when
time.
you know what that was. You'd gone through your blonde hair moment at that period, your blonde period, and you
Yeah.
hadn't done your hair properly, so they thought it was Bojo.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I'm just,
Wow. I,
I've
I,
never been that angry about someone's music to call them like the the downfall of a whole country. I'm just like, it's so interesting and hilarious.
It's
I'm
unbelievable.
speechless by that one. Well, I'm not actually, because, like you say, we are in an age where people hide behind the phones, make
Yeah.
comments, and think that it's okay to make comments like that. When if you said that in the street, you'd most probably,
You get punched in the face. Like,
it was a polite way of putting it, like,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean. And I
yeah,
think we're in that age where, unfortunately, there are a few people who do get offended by that. Like,
yeah,
instead of, like, if you don't like it, you don't say nothing. You just go, I'm not listening to it. Don't have
yeah,
to listen
exactly.
to it.
And the thing is,
Turn it off.
this particular guy has come back multiple times and commented on every release we've done since he kind of heard us. So I'm like, you're obviously listening to our music. So
Yeah.
like, we're winning. Essentially, thank you. You're streaming our music more. And I'm just like,
Woohoo!
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just the main thing I realized, thankfully, at a reasonably early age, is you're never going to please everyone, and you shouldn't try and waste your time trying to do so. Because it's just not going to happen.
No.
And it's fine. I know for a fact that that some people are not going to like me and my music, and that's absolutely fine. I'm never going to be offended at someone saying, sorry, it's just not for me. I'm like, that's totally fine. You know,
Do you know what? It's the attitude you've got to have, and stick with it, mate.
yeah,
Seriously. So
Mm.
let's get to your other project, which is quite an interesting one, because this is the one I've seen. Obviously, the hard rock side of you, which
yeah.
is the Matt Long and the Reverend ones. So I've seen you play. I've seen you smash it on stage, put your heart and soul into it. Can you give us, like, what was the reasons behind you starting? Uh, would you call it a side project? What would you call it? Would you?
I wouldn't call it a side project anymore. It may well have
Mm,
started out like that, but it's definitely progressed into its own thing that I want to
yeah.
pursue a lot more. Um, it originally started out as a solo project, so it was just going to be called Matt Long, and because I had a whole bunch of music that, because I was in Catfish all the time, I wasn't really doing a lot of the rock stuff, and I missed it. Um, for a few years, I wasn't playing any kind of rock gigs or anything like that, and I was still in college, still playing that kind of stuff. I just didn't have an outlet for it. So I really missed it, and I was like, I had all this music that I was writing, but it just wasn't fit for Catfish. So I was like, I had to find something else um, to put it in. And I was like, I've always kind of wanted to see what would happen if I started a solo venture. You know, it can kind of come and go as it please or whatever. So yeah, I put together a plan of like it would be me and then session musicians to come in and just kind of, you know, do the gigs if they're free and able, and obviously for the right money. And it was just going to be like that. The second I got Adam and Kev in to the room for the first ever rehearsal for it, like you know, I was like, okay, this is a band. This isn't like a solo thing. We need to kind of progress this into a band because it just works, you know. Because I'd worked with Adam in Catfish for so long, and even before then in college we were together for ages working together. So we got on really well. Um, and then with Kev, I was really lucky to get him in the band because I thought he was going to be far too busy for it, and you know, because he was. I remember when we supported a band that he was playing in with Catfish. I remember looking at him and just being like, he's an awesome drummer. Like I would love to be. I would love to be in a band with someone like that. You know, at some point. And luckily now I'm in 2 bands with him, so I'm twice as lucky. Um,
He is a beast, isn't he? As a drummer, he's
he
out of
really
this
is.
world.
He just brings such energy to everything he plays and just such power. And I'm like, it's just great to play along with. And you know, but he's also got good dynamic as well, which is I find one of the most important things for drummers.
Mm.
Not that I'm a drummer in any way. I'd love to be able to play drums. But yeah, I always music in general is about dynamics for me, and Kev just has fantastic dynamics.
I think it makes a hell of things a lot easier on stage when you've got a
Yeah,
drummer who
it's
you can
really
rely
comfortable.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so comfortable playing with him.
Mm.
It really is. It's just like I know for a fact that he's going to do a good job, no matter what.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And the
I'd say
thing is, as a three-piece,
mm,
as a three, I mean, I'm a non-musician. I just used to chant along and sing. But as a three-piece, I think my own belief is, as a three-piece, you need to be a better player to be able to fill that space.
I think yeah, there is a certain element of you need to if you're in a 3 piece, you need it. It's impressive to not sound like a 3 piece.
Mm,
You know, to
that's
have
a good
that
way, yeah.
yeah, to like sound like you've got a whole lot more going on. And I think the main part of that is actually nothing to do with me, but to do with having an excellent bassist and an excellent drummer, a rhythm section behind you. That's where the space kind of fills out. And like you say, you have to be a certain kind of player to be able to do that kind of thing. And those two absolutely are. So like, if I'm out there, if we're doing like a huge, heavy sounding riff, and it's all sounding nice and thick and powerful, and then I go into a solo, which obviously I'll stop playing the rhythm, and then it will just be kind of me doing the lead stuff. For me, they just keep up the energy behind me. I
Mhm.
always had a thing against doing a 3 piece thing because I was like, I want to have like something underneath. You know, if I'm doing a solo or if that other guitarist or whatever is doing a solo, there's something underneath it to kind of keep it going. And when we did this, I never had that issue. You know, it's got its own sound, and obviously I'm not going to say like it sounds like a 4 piece, but like it's definitely not lacking anything.
Oh
You know,
God, no. I mean, when we saw you in Manchester, and it's fair to say you were playing to an audience that were 100% metalheads, truth
yes,
be told, they were. And I just remember me and Ian stood there and watching you and looking at each other and going, they've won this over. And it was the power. And you, if you stood outside, there's no way I'd have thought it was a three-piece at all.
yeah. Well, that means we're doing something right. So thank you very much.
So I know that you and the Revenant ones have got an album coming out in a few months' time.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to talk about the writing process for
Mhm.
it. Does it vary from what you do with Catfish, or is it exactly the same? And if it is, can you talk us through the process, please?
I mean, with Catfish, it's more open to interpretation through the other band members. So, like for instance, if I have like 75% of a song or even like 50% of a song written, uh, I know I can bring it into the other guys, and then we'll kind of workshop it and wood chop it a little bit down into a full song. And the same thing with Paul, my dad and the keyboard player. Um, he'll come in with a song, and then we'll kind of it'll either sometimes I can write the whole song in one, and it's pretty much the same as it is. Other times it'll come into uh, you know other people putting things in as well, and the same thing goes for Paul as well. So it's more of a cooperative writing experience. In the Revenant ones, at least so far, it's been definitely more of just stemming from me, because like I said, it was a solo project to begin with, so I was writing the whole thing. to begin with. And now that it's more of a proper band going forward, that might change. Um, but I think it's always going to kind of stem from myself because, especially lyrically, for me, I always prefer singing my own lyrics because it's written about personal experience or something that I relate to at least. So, for instance, in Catfish, I would never sing a song that Paul has written because that was his experience. So he would be able to emote to that more than I would for that. We've co-written some things and we've done like a dual vocal thing here and there, but not like a, you know, I've never like taken his lyrics and then sang them without him doing anything, for instance. Yeah, and yeah, for the Revenant ones, it's definitely stemming from me with little bits here and there from Adam and Kev as well. But yeah, it's definitely comes from me in like a, you know, at least in initial sense.
So how are you going to how does it dovetail how in post COVID times? How are they going to dovetail together? Because you've obviously got. It's good that you could actually do a gig as both bands because obviously the other two guys are in Catfish with you. But
Well, yeah,
how are you imagining it's going to dovetail together? This isn't a loaded question, by the way, Matt. Just in case you're wondering.
yeah, that's fine. That's all good. Well, actually, to be fair, you know that is a very good point. Like the members are the same minus one person, so we could theoretically, if there was like a Revenant Ones gig in the middle of a a Catfish run, we could nip off and do that, and then Paul would be able to sit down and relax for a night, and whilst we play a gig. But I think going forward, we might try more organization in regards to each band would probably get certain time allotted to them. So I would do like a month of Catfish stuff, and then next month it'll be Revenant Ones stuff, things like that. And I'd have like specific tours for each one. So we'd kind of map it out a bit more. Because I've had lots of people ask me like, which one is the main band? I'm like, I never like to think of it like that. I think they're both, I'm working hard on both of them, and we're all working hard on both of them. So to belittle one just because it's the other band doesn't make sense to me. Like every time I'm doing a Catfish gig, it's I have this thing in my head where like, if I'm at a Catfish gig and someone asks me about the Revenant Ones, at that point in time they will then be the other band. When I'm at a Revenant Ones gig and they do the same thing, ask me about Catfish, Catfish will be the other band. So it's like whichever gig I'm at, that's which one I'm concentrating on at that point in time. So they're definitely going to coexist and kind of run parallel along each other. So I don't.
I'd
I
really
doubt
like
we'll ever do like I doubt we'll ever do a show where both bands are on the same bill. But it could be interesting. Doing.
Do you know what? I'm going to book that just for the hell of it. I promise you, I'm going to set up. I have this picture, right? And this is you and your wherever you are with Catfish, and it's a blues audience, and Matt forgets what band he is, and he lets fucking rip, and he starts giving it some, and he stops, looks around, everyone's like that.
It'd be like Marty McFly from Back to the Future. It's like,
I'll guarantee it's the only gig that fella will go to who's giving him bad comments.
And he'll stand up and go,
yeah.
I told you, fucking told you.
This is the guy that's wrong with the country today.
You brought this country to ruin. Love it. So obviously, Matt, you are a full-time musician.
Yes.
So can you give me some highs? What are the highs of it? And obviously there are some lowlights as well of being a full-time musician.
Yeah. I think it's like that for every job. There's highs and lows.
Yeah.
The highs are definitely I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm doing something I'm good at. Because in all honesty, I'm not very good at much else, and I'll be the first one to say that. At least I don't think so. Anyway, there might be something I could whittle some kind of expertise in, but yeah. So it's nice doing something that I'm good at, and I'm enjoying at the same time. So yeah, it can be hard. It can be really hard. Not the least bit financially lucrative in any way. I think there's a whole thing nowadays. For some strange reason, musicians don't deserve the same pay as other people at the same event, and it's just like, why is that? So, I in all honesty, I would like to maybe get more money for doing this, but you know, everyone would like to get more money at doing everything they do, so it's fair enough. Another thing is it does take a toll on the social life quite a lot, and you would think, you know, because I'm going out traveling around and going all out around the country, that I would have more of a social life, but in all honesty, you know, I'm spending most of my time on the road, and you know, weirdly enough, during all this in the pandemic, I've been more social than I was when I was outside the pandemic because of all the you could do Zoom calls and I can virtual chats with friends, which is fantastic. I've rekindled a whole bunch of old friendships, and you know, it's been fantastic. So it's really good. On the road, there's less. I don't know. It might just be me personally. It's just I can only really fixate on one thing at a time. So if I'm on the road, it's work, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's tricky. And then when I'm home after a long tour, the last thing I want to do is go outside. I want to kind of like vegetate in bed for a bit and just, you know, slob out a bit. So yeah, it is tricky kind of finding time between having time off and then working to actually have an active social life. So that is tricky. I'm not the most social person anyway, but you know, it's you know, yeah, I'm definitely an introvert when it comes to those kind of things. But you know, it's always nice seeing good friends and hanging out and just having a good time. So that does kind of get put by the wayside, unfortunately, a lot of time when I am touring about. But yeah, it's definitely not an excuse to not enjoy what I'm doing. If you know
The
what I mean.
thing is, though, it is a job,
It's a job.
and it is a job, and I know when we've been on tour, it's like you pack all your gear up, you drive to the next place, you unpack, you do your sound check, you do your interviews, you're on stage, you pack your gear up, you drive to the next stop, and you've got to try and fit in sleep there. You've got to try and fit
Exactly.
in
Sleep.
warm up exercises and stuff like that. When you
Yeah.
can eat, you like, you know what I mean? I've done interviews while eating a pizza and stuff like that. Your diet goes out the window. Everything's like, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Diet is non-existent for me because it's like because I don't know about you, but I can't eat before going on stage. So
Yeah,
I have to wait until after the show, which is usually like midnight, 1 in the morning, until I eat anything, which is not good. That's not good for you.
Ian eats on stage, Matt. He's a pizza guy. When you think he's tuning again, he's not. He's eating pizza, mate.
Genius. That's killed two birds with one stone. Yeah.
You
No,
said that was a
definitely.
plectrum, mate. It's just a really small pizza. I'm like,
Yeah. Why is my guitar so greasy? Yeah. No, it definitely is. There's a lot
But
of work behind it. The thing is, being on
however,
stage is about like 10%, and then the other 90% is traveling around and setting up and doing all that kind of stuff. So
the one
that
thing I
10%
do
is
enjoy,
amazing, but yeah,
the
there's a lot of
one
other thing behind it.
definitely what I would say is though, the one thing that I do enjoy, and I know this has happened for yourself, Matt, is going into a new town and meeting new people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There is nothing better than seeing new people at your gig and they're just getting into it, singing your songs, and it just gives you that. It's the reason why we get on stage.
Absolutely. Those things just really remind you of why you're doing it, and there's nothing that can replace that. I will tell you, I did a tour in Spain with Catfish quite a few years ago now, and I don't speak much Spanish. I took it in school, but I'm not fluent in any way. Um, and a lot of people out there don't speak English, which that's how it is. So when we went to this is the first time we had played in that country at all. We went to a venue, and the whole it was a small village, and it was like it didn't look like anyone even lived there. But when we did the gig, the whole village just flocked to the gig, and it was absolutely full of people, like absolutely rammed, like to the point where it was kind of dangerous, full of people. And there's a song we did, and I saw out in the crowd that people were singing along to it. And I tell you what, that is the coolest feeling, to go to a new country that you haven't played in before as a band, to people who don't speak English and you've never met before and probably will never meet again, and have them singing a song back to you. That's the coolest feeling in the world, and I'm so thankful for that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because the last question is the one that I always ask, and I usually get similar answers, but I'm hoping that there might be something different this time. But anyway, so let's fast forward into the future, and Matt Long's sitting there, and you're looking back at your music career, what would success look like to you, Matt?
Hmm. Well, kind of essentially being able to do what I do uh, more frequently, and kind of make an actual career out of it. Because I am kind of making a career out of it now, but it would be nice to like do it more lucratively. Certainly, I'm not driven by money, but obviously, if I can make a living out of doing what I want to do, that's fantastic. Um, so I'm not like looking for fame and fortune, because I think that's a fool's errand in music. Like I said before, I didn't start music because I wanted to be rich and famous, and I still think that nowadays. I wanted to do it because I want to do it. So if I can somehow make a living out of it, which I was, you know, starting to do before all this went down, then I'll be very happy if I can do that. And if I can just keep writing music that I want to write, and keep going to new places, keep meeting new people, and just be able to do it full time. Like I was, that's what I did when I decided I want to do it. I just put my whole thing into it, and to see that pay off, for me, that would be success.
I see you feeling that, mate.
So that's all of our questions, Matt. You'll be
Wow,
glad to
very
know.
quick.
However, I always throw in an extra cheeky one because I'm a
That's fair enough.
Scouser. Can you give me all of your links to where we can get you? So if anyone's on here who goes, I want to be like Matt Long, I wanted to learn how to play, what gear he's got, what he's doing, where is he playing next, what's he doing, like social media. How do we find out? How do we listen to your music, Matt? Give us your links, bud.
Well, the best place to keep an eye on us will probably be Facebook. We keep updated on there all the time, for both bands, and also I have my own one as well, like my own solo page as well. So yeah, we've got Catfish. I think it's actually Catfish Blues Band. We had, again, that was a URL we got at the very beginning of the career. We need to change that. um, and so yeah, Catfish UK, Catfish Blues Band. Matt Long and the Revenant Ones on Facebook as well. Matthew Long musician page is my own one as well. If you want to keep an eye on that, that's where I'll tend to do my public live streams every now and again, during all this. And then our websites as well, catfishbluesband.co.uk, for Catfish. Again, it was the only URL we could get at the time. And mattlong.net, once again, couldn't get anything else. So mattlong.net for all the Revenant One stuff and my solo stuff as well. And yeah, we'll keep updated on gigs whenever they start happening again on there. The Revenant Ones has a YouTube channel. Catfish also has a YouTube channel, so check them out. And we have a music video out on the Revenant Ones page, which has been out for a good year or so now. And we'll be putting up the new stuff on there at some point as well. New music videos at some point whenever they come out. Catfish, the YouTube channel, we got some live footage on there, professional shot live footage, and yeah, it's and also from the websites you can buy any albums. Obviously, Matt Long and the Revenant Ones hasn't released one yet, so we haven't got anything on there. But you can buy T-shirts as well on there, and then for the Catfish one, we have all our albums and T-shirts and other things for sale during all this. So if you head over there and if you happen to purchase anything, I'm very, very thankful for that because it helps just keep us going during all this. And just come say hi at a gig whenever they happen again. That's the main thing. I want to come meet you guys and hopefully get to do this at some point soon, in the flesh. And, hopefully all this madness will be over at some point soon.
Fingers crossed, Matt. Fingers crossed. What I'll do, Matt,
Everything
is I'll put all the links right down below. So, guys, click on the links below. Give your support to Matt. He's a legend. He's quality. He's a great guy. As you can see, he's very approachable and he'll help you out as much as he can. And like I say, reach out. It is important to us all to support the music scene.
And
so
hopefully when all this is over, I'll have at least had a haircut before you actually see me in person. I know this isn't great. This is my lockdown mane.
keep it, let it grow.
It's getting in my mouth when I eat.
Look at me, I'm like fucking Jimmy Sam.
Matt, trust me, You can use it while you're on stage and just hide food there, mate. We can just like, you know what I mean? Just while you're playing, just keep your head down and just pretend
It's
that
all
you.
nutrients.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much again, Matt. Really appreciate it. But one thing we've got to do is, John, over to you, mate.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, excuse me. That was the Scouser and the Scot. So until the next time, you know what to do. Hit that cowbell, subscribe.